Hey everyone, it's QuickyBaby and welcome back to World of Tanks, and yeah, it's challenge time. The Bourrasque challenge is here. I reviewed this tank. Well, I previewed this tank. It wasn't a full review as I was playing my first few games in it yesterday on the channel, and today I'm going to let you know exactly what your chances are of being able to complete this challenge completely for free, or alternatively, if maybe you want to complete some of the stages but don't want to have to grind the really tricky ones at the end, how much this vehicle is likely to cost you and whether I think that it's actually going to be worth it. So in the interests of making this not pretty, but more efficient and all of the information right there at your disposal, I have taken everything and put it onto an Excel spreadsheet. And let me try and quickly break this down for you. Firstly, big change to this Bourrasque challenge, and that is that you can no longer play tier 9 tanks to be able to complete the fast track missions for mastery. Now you can only play your tier 10 vehicles. I personally think this is a rather poor change because one of the better things recently is that you have been able to play your tier 9 tanks and grind through them while also still having a chance of being able to complete some of the challenges. I presume that Wargaming realized that I was kind of figuring out that, sure, some of the missions are a lot easier to do at tier 9, some of them are a lot easier to do at tier 10, but to remove that choice from us just seems a little bit unnecessary. So, when is this challenge going to be starting? It starts tomorrow, February the 21st, and it runs through till Monday at 8 a.m. for the European server, which means that you will have 10 full days to complete this challenge. So with all of that in mind, what specifically do you have to do for each of the 10 stages to be able to unlock the vehicle and get that Brothers-in-Arms crew? So if you want to grind your way to be able to get this tank, then you are going to need to grind out 245,000 experience, which is actually 6,000 experience easier than it was for the Renegade challenge, but does that really help that much? Well, maybe by about 2 or 3%. Yeah, this challenge is pretty much going to be just as hard as it was for the Renegade. One of the things that you will notice if I put these two challenges side by side here, that Wargaming have only really shaved off the experience requirements towards the lower end, while still making the final stages really, really hard to be able to achieve. It's almost as if they want you to be able to complete 1, 2, 3, 4, or even possibly 5 stages of this challenge, but they don't want you to complete the last ones, I presume because they're quite happy if you want to drop 30 euros in their pocket to be able to get the tank and the bundle. With the time that it would take, which I estimate myself to be able to achieve on my free-to-play account for the final stage alone being 9.5 hours. But remember, the opportunity for you is not to only grind experience to be able to complete this challenge. You can take your tier 10 tanks out onto the battlefield to complete what Wargaming are calling their missions for mastery. Stage 1 is actually super easy, 2,800 damage, and you have to be in the top 3 players on your team by damage caused. Stage 2 is to get 800 base experience twice. This is a bit of an interesting one when they want you to get 800 base experience, because really that's only achievable in a win. So while getting 800 base experience is not too tricky inside a win, you have to get those wins in the first place. So I probably estimate this is going to take me about 4 games. Next up, stage 3 causes 4,300 damage, but you only have to do that once. Wow, being able to complete an entire stage at stage 3 just by dealing 4,300 damage, it's pretty straightforward, and I think that's actually probably going to be easier than doing stage 2 twice, at least if you do damage whore and you try and play in one of your tank destroyers or just really wait until the end of the battle and play safely. Stage 4 next, be the top player on your team by experience 5 times. Ooh, that's a lot more tricky. I think that's probably going to take me about 15 games to be able to achieve if I'm on my main account and playing my heart out. Next, stage 5. Look how much harder stage 5 is than stage 3. Stage 5 is literally the same as stage 3, but you have to do it 7 times. That is amazing. Already you've gone from probably 3 games that it would require me to be able to complete stage 3 up to 21 games to be able to complete stage 5. Stage 6 is earn at least 850 base experience 15 times. So again, that is 8 times harder than what stage 2 was. And I think it's going to probably take me about 35 games to do that. Stage 7, I'm actually estimating, is pretty straightforward. Be the top player on both teams by damage caused 10 times and cause at least 3,000 damage. I personally think that I can probably do that in 1 in 3 battles. Maybe going to take me about 30 games at tier 10 if I want to be able to sneak through that. Stage 8, pretty tricky. Cause at least 4,500 damage 10 times. I think that's probably going to take me about 35, 40, possibly 50 battles if I'm not playing very well that day. And that's where the stages start to really be a lot longer. And you have to play tight. You have to play tough. These aren't kind of games where you can rush in when you're doing your missions for commitment when you only need experience. When you're playing your tier 10, you have to be fully focused and at the top of your game. Stage 9, be the top player on your team by experience earned 20 times? Ooh, that could be brutal. Even though I'm playing at the top of my game, how many times am I going to say that? Probably about 60 battles I think it's going to take me. The final one's an absolute joke. Be the top player on your team by damage caused 35 times, boys and girls. Okay, I think that's probably going to take me about 100 games of World of Tanks to be able to achieve, which is actually quite laughable, because when I look at my estimated time between the tier 10, which you can see over here on the left, and the grind that you can see on the right, I'm estimating that I can manage to actually probably do the first 5 stages in about a 5-hour play session, again if I'm playing well at tier 10, whereas if I wanted to do the first 5 stages by grinding on my free-to-play account, it's probably going to take me about 11 to 12 hours. However, if we compare the time that it would take to do the final 5 stages, I think that it'll probably take me about 30 to 31 hours if I'm playing tier 10 and I'm playing well, compared to what I estimate it will only take me 35 hours to be able to grind it. So one of my big recommendations to you out there, if you feel like you're a good player and 4,300 damage seems like it's manageable, I would recommend to do the first 5 stages by tier 10, and then once you get past stage 5, you could try and sweat it, but I would probably recommend to just try and grind the final half, unless you really are an excellent player and you can be on top damage, you can be on top experience, and you're consistent. And remember, there are going to be other players out there who are trying to compete for those spots as well, so the competition is probably going to be stiff. So for all of you non-Unicum players out there, for all of you players who don't even want to jump up at tier 10 to be able to contest this challenge, now I'm going to estimate how long I think it will take you, depending on what your average base experience is, to be able to complete this marathon. So if you average 100 experience, I really don't think you're going to be able to achieve this, because it's going to take you 4,900 games, that's 490 games per day, which I estimate is probably going to be about 49 hours. If your games last 6 minutes, you take no breaks, and you can play 10 games of World of Tanks per hour. If you average 200 base experience, it's still not going to be possible unless you've got a mate who can cover for you while you're sleeping, because it's going to take 2,200 games, 22 hours a day of World of Tanks. If you average 300 base experience, you're still going to have to play about 13 hours a day for that 10-day period. And now we're starting to get to more the real area for everybody who's probably about, 45 up to 48% wins. You average 400 experience per game. If you want to do this for free, it's going to take you 9 hours a day. And remember, I'd like to clarify that this is base experience. This is not your daily doubles. It's not even with a premium account. It's not with boosters. None of that. It's all base experience. So, for example, if you get 600 base experience, which is what I average that I get on my free-to-play account when I'm not playing with all of the advantages that I have on my main account, that would be 900 experience with a premium account, for example, for each of the battles you play. And I estimate that you're going to have to play for 5 hours a day if you want to be able to achieve the tank completely for free, if you get 600 base experience. Next, let's talk about what I usually get on my main account when I'm playing my more competitive vehicles. 800 base experience. That would be 1,200 average experience per battle with a premium account. I think that I could manage to do the challenge by playing about 3.5 hours a day. And to be honest, if you're a unicorn out there, it's probably not that bad. Go get in your more competitive vehicles, play anywhere from tier 6 to tier 10, and you could do one play session of 7 hours and then take the next day off. One play session of 7 hours and then take the next day off, or just do a little bit here and there. And it's always interesting for me that Wargaming make it so much easier for the better players to be able to achieve these vehicles than they do for the more average players in World of Tanks. And for the eagle-eyed of you out there, you might be thinking, well, how does this scaling even work? Why does it require so much more time for somebody who gets 100 average base experience? Well, that's because you have to finish in the top 10 of your team by experience earned for the game to even count. So that means you have to finish in the top 2/3 of your team, boys and girls. And so in my calculations, I've also accounted for this, where I estimate that somebody who gets 100 base experience is probably not even going to be in the top 10 more than half the time. Whereas somebody who gets 800 base experience is probably going to be in the top 10 85% of the time. And that's really where the scaling comes into play and why it's so much easier for the better players to be able to achieve these tanks. And I would really question as to why Wargaming only limit it to the top 10 players. Are they they really saying that there are going to be 5 bots on the team? I would really encourage Wargaming to maybe loosen this top 10 requirement to top 12, just to really filter out the bots and just to allow people to relax a little bit more and not get so angry when they're not top 10. And if they were to do this, it would definitely make the challenges a lot more achievable for even, the more average and mediocre players out there. So now, how does the Bourrasque challenge stack up compared to the last 3 challenges inside the game? So how does the Bourrasque challenge stack up compared to the Renegade, the TS5, and the EBR challenge, for example? Well, firstly, a lot of you might be questioning, why does it take so much longer for mediocre players to be able to complete the Renegade challenge and the Bourrasque challenge than it was for the EBR and the TS5? Sure, while it was a little bit easier with regards to the amount of experience, it surely shouldn't be scaling that hard. Well, that was because, remember, with the EBR and the TS5 challenge, that their requirements were pretty much just play a battle 85 times. And so that meant that it was actually quite hard for the better players to be able to race through compared to the more mediocre players just managing to grind through it. Now that all of that has been removed, as we can see for the really below average players, this challenge is going to be unachievable, just like with the Renegade, unlike it was for the TS5 and the EBR. And even if you're an average player averaging 400 and 500 experience per game, this challenge is going to be incredibly hard compared to the EBR or the TS5, with it being roughly twice as hard as the time required to play per day was for the TS5. However, if you're a great player, or even if you're an excellent player, as we can see down here, the challenge is going to be substantially easier, and that's not even taking into account that the best players are going to be able to pretty much just skip through the first 5 stages in less than half the time that it will take the grinders. And so all in all, this means that the Bourrasque challenge is still 97.5% as hard as it was for the Renegade. So if you manage to achieve that challenge, it's only a tiny little bit easier. And if you didn't even get close to achieving the Renegade challenge, I wouldn't recommend to really do this one. My firm recommendation for the better players out there, smash through the first 5 stages in your tier 10 tanks. Then I'd recommend to drop down and play whatever tiers you want. Maybe you could grind some credits in your tier 8 premiums. But be warned that stage 10 and stage 9, yeah, they're brutal. Even with tier 10 tanks, there's no way to take the sting out of how long it's going to take you. And I would really probably recommend to just do something, have one less takeaway, and save yourself the 15 or 20 hours that I think that it's probably going to take just to complete those final stages. Next, I'd like to share with you what my strategy is probably going to be to achieve this on my free-to-play account, and I'm doing it. I'm doing it, boys and girls. I'm going to smash through this even on my free-to-play account, and Tanya's just going to have to deal with it. My strategy is going to be completing the first 4 stages, but not actually playing the final game that I need to complete the 4th stage, which will probably take me roughly about 4 or 5 hours, depending on whether I try and do some of the tier 10 requirements. And now that I have the Progetto 65 on my free-to-play account, it's finally become a reality. And then at stage 4, to unlock that day of premium, I'll play my first game in the next day, unlock that day of premium, and then I'll probably try and complete 1, maybe 2 entire stages with that premium account in a mammoth 10-hour session. Then I'll probably do a half day where I play another 5 hours, try and grind through stage 7, and then once again, at the start of my play session, I'll finish stage 7, unlock a day of premium, and then I'll probably try and grind through all of stage 8 and most of stage 9 with that day of premium. Then I'll probably do a small session where I complete half of stage 9, saving the completion to unlock that final day of premium, and then use it to grind through a 10-hour marathon session of stage 10. So while that's my strategy, and that's how I'm going to plan to min-max this challenge, in the end, it's still going to take 5 hours a day, and every day you don't play, the next day you've got to play 10. Yeah. These challenges, they're brutal. And as I always do, I'm really laying it out here exactly how long I think it's going to take for even great players to be able to complete the stages, boys and girls. Do not go at these challenges thinking, oh, I'll just play a little bit. You have to be rigorous. You have to actually plan ahead. Know how long the stages are going to take you and plan your weekly or your daily schedule almost around it if you really want to complete this. Because the worst thing that can happen is that you can get very close to completing it, but then you can run out of time at the end, and then you either have to get your credit card out, or if that's not an option, you just won't get the tank anyway. There's no point in completing the first 9 stages without also completing that 10th stage. You're not going to get the tank. Sure, you'll get a 90% discount on the vehicle, but if you can't afford to spend the 7 or 10 euros it will be to be able to unlock that stage, then it's not going to have been worth it. And also, a couple more warnings. A lot of players have burnt out trying to complete these challenges. By the end of it, they're really not enjoying the game. They're actually hating the game. And playing the game, sacrificing other aspects of your life, which kind of keep us all a little bit in balance, and you can wind up really not enjoying something that's meant to be a game at the end of the day. And finally, to all of you people out there who have real things to worry about, like family, jobs, or students who are studying for your exams, just remember, it's pixels on your screen. There are many vehicles out there that are like the Bourrasque, and Wargaming will sell it later on down the line as well. So if now isn't a good time to say that you want to invest 40, 50, 60, 80 hours of your life into this game to be able to unlock a tank which is very similar to what you can get already inside a tech tree, don't do it. But for all of you out there who must see me suffer to try and get this on my free-to-play account, yeah, I'm going to be live pretty much the whole time for the next 10 days on twitch.tv/QuickyBaby. And so, ladies and gents, boys and girls, that's it for today. Good luck with the Bourrasque challenge if you're undertaking it. If you enjoyed this video, or maybe it just helped you out and put things into a little bit of reality, then give it a thumbs up. But if you hated it, give it a thumbs down. And let me know whether you're going to be undertaking the Bourrasque challenge. Or if you watched my preview on the tank yesterday, that you don't think it looks that special and you're going to be skipping it out. And as always, thank you so much for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.